In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 easy jazz solos that anyone can learn to improve their jazz improv skills without getting frustrated. Coming on up. One way to improve your jazz soloing is simply to start copying other great jazz musicians' jazz solos. The idea to see what they're playing over top of different chord progressions in a variety of different jazz standards so that you can understand yourself how to play the jazz language. It's a great first step to try to get some information that you can start playing for yourself in your own solos. But here's the problem. When you go to turn on a Charlie Parker solo that you want to learn, you immediately realize that there is way too many notes going by way too quickly for you to pick them up. You get frustrated really quickly and inevitably you quit and say that this whole thing isn't for you at all. Well, the good news is that there are easy jazz solos that you can learn that will still help you really improve over top of important jazz standards, start sounding authentic with jazz language, and start improving your actual playing right away. And of course, some musicians have naturally easier solos to learn than others. And the artist we're going to be focusing on in these solos is Miles Davis. Miles Davis is a great option if you want to learn to improvise over jazz standards, but not feel like you're unable to actually play the material or even memorize it. So the first solo I want to talk about is Miles Davis's solo on So What. So take a look at the first 8 bars here of this Miles Davis solo over top of So What. And So What, by the way, is a great song to learn because it's what we call a modal jazz standard. It's based really just off of one chord here, which is concert D minor 7. And then in the bridge, it goes to concert E flat minor 7. So What is a really great study of how to play over top of one chord and sound really good. And that's exactly what Miles Davis does here. So he starts it off like this, right? And what I want you to notice right here is he really just plays D to start with and D an octave lower. And so you're gonna see this happen a lot, is that Miles Davis really likes to repeat notes over and over and over again. He uses as little information as possible to create a big punch. And then it goes on to say, right? Once again, starting the line on D natural and ending it on D natural. And then moving on, he goes and says, now notice what he does right here. He plays a motific idea. So, right? And again, he's still resolving to the D, but then he goes and he plays it again, only he lands on this C natural. Right? Giving it a little bit of a different spin there at the end. So this is what we call motific development. And Miles Davis does this throughout his solo on So What, throughout the entire time, really just repeating ideas over and over again. Now there's some more concepts I would want to talk about in this solo that make it such a great solo to learn, but those concepts actually come up in the other solos I'm about to talk about. So we'll save them for then. Now at this point, you may be wondering, okay, great. How do I actually go about learning these solos? Do I do it by taking a look at a solo transcription like this? And honestly, this is just for teaching purposes. What I would really recommend you do is learn these solos by ear so that you internalize it better, so that you're able to improve your ears better, that it really just going to help you learn it and memorize it so much better. So if you're wondering how to do that, please stick around to the end of the video because I have another one that I want to share with you that's going to give you a simple 5-step process to do this, and really no one else is teaching this method. So stick around to the end of the video to learn how to learn solos by ear. Easy jazz solo number 2 is Miles Davis's solo on Freddie Freeloader. So take a look here at the first 8 bars of this Miles Davis solo on Freddie Freeloader. Now, an important reason to learn this solo is because this is a solo over top of a B flat blues. So take a look here. We have our 1 chord, which is B flat 7, and we have our 4 chord here, which goes back to a 1 chord here at the B flat 7, and it goes on throughout the rest of the blues form. And since the blues is one of the most important song forms in all of jazz, and once you learn a jazz blues and get really good at it, it really compounds over top of every other jazz standard makes things easier. So learning how to play and improvise over a blues is a super good idea. Now, what's crazy about this solo is how simple it is, yet how good it sounds if you go through and listen to it. But once again, Miles Davis just starts off the solo with 3 notes here. And guess what? It's all the root note. It's just B flat. And whereas a musician like Cannonball Adderley or John Coltrane, who play on this song with him, would go out and start playing a bunch of amazing bebop lines and cool stuff, he really likes to keep it super simple. That being said, Miles Davis knows that when he's playing only a few notes, he really has to make sure that they count. So if you look forward to this A flat note right here, we look and we understand that this is the flat 7 of the B flat 7 chord. That's what we call a guide tone. It's like a really important chord tone in the chord that helps it really pop out so you can hear the chords when you're playing it. So he plays, right? And so just by hitting that A flat going to the C, it really makes it sound good. Then looking ahead to this next line, this pickup that goes into the E flat 7, the 4 chord, he literally is just playing an arpeggio to the E flat 7. He starts on a G note, which is the 3rd of the E flat 7. 3rd is the other guide tone that makes the chord changes pop, and basically just walks up it. He goes 3rd, 5th, flat 7, root, back to the flat 7, back to the 3rd. Like, it doesn't spell out the chord changes more than that. So the interesting thing here is he actually anticipates the B flat 7. He actually starts early and goes the root, B flat, and A flat, which is the flat 7 of B flat, and then finishes off resolving. So lots of chord tones and lots of really simple lines, understated lines that really play the chord changes. Easy Jazz solo to learn number 3 is Miles Davis's solo on Autumn Leaves. Okay, so take a look at these 8 bars of the Miles Davis solo on Autumn Leaves. Now, Autumn Leaves, really important jazz standard. Why is it a really important jazz standard? Well, just take a look at the chord changes here. So what we have here is 2 key centers. We have B flat major 7 and we have G minor 7. And so the C minor 7 is the 1 and the F7 is the 2 of the B flat major, which is the 1. And then the E flat major 7 is the 4 chord in B flat major. And then we have an A flat minor 7, D7 going to this G minor 7, which is a 2, 5, 1 in G minor. So what we're dealing with here is the major 2-5-1 chord progression and the minor 2-5-1 chord progression. And by the way, these are also relative keys. G minor is the key of the tune, but B flat major is the relative major. It's just a concept that comes up a lot in jazz. And by the way, you could also relate all of these chords to G minor, but I find it helpful to relate them to B flat and G minor. And so these chord progressions are gonna come up in hundreds of other jazz standards, so much so that once you realize that the 2-5-1 is in all of them, it's gonna make jazz so much easier. So getting good at improvising over top of these is really important. So once again, what does Miles Davis do? He starts by being really simple and he just plays 4 notes, all the same note. And that's all over top of a C minor 7th chord. And actually the interesting thing here is that he's actually playing the 9th, which is an extension of the chord. So Miles Davis isn't afraid to play colorful notes on top of these chords. And here's the bizarre thing, right? Is that we just talked about how in Freddie Freeloader, he does a great job of outlining the chord changes, but Miles Davis is Miles Davis. And here he says, absolutely not, I'm just gonna play B flat stuff. And so he plays G, B flat, D, F, and D. Basically, we're talking about playing a G minor 7th, which works perfectly over top of a B flat major, by the way, and resolving it back to that D note again. Right? So he's always coming back to these themes and variations. Now over the E flat major 7, he does indeed hit chord tones. He actually essentially outlines the E flat major arpeggio, but resolves on the 13th, which again, not afraid of using the extensions and alterations of these chords. And then as not to play too many notes, because that would be too much trouble, he goes ahead and goes and resolves here with this C natural note here on the A minor 7 flat 5. Now here's a huge lesson that you're gonna learn from Miles Davis that you won't learn from a lot of other great jazz musicians, or at least you won't learn it as obviously. And that's all of this right here. This is all what we call space. Space, space, space. He leaves a lot of space between his lines to give them time to breathe and give them time to think about what's actually going on and what to play next. So Miles Davis is a great teacher in that realm, and one that you should investigate and pay attention when you're learning his solos. Now he ends resolving to the G minor 7 like this. Okay, and that E natural that he plays is actually the 6th, right? And so actually if you listen to that Cannonball Adderley Autumn Leaves version of this song that Miles is playing this solo on, they really use that 6th within that one chord there. So he's paying homage to that, and once again, playing a colorful note on top of that chord rather than just a basic chord tone. So the next logical step here is you need to figure out how to learn these by ear. It's gonna be really helpful for you. So I have a video up on the screen right now. Go ahead and click on that, give you a 5-step simple process to help you along with that. And also, by the way, we learn new jazz standards and solos within my Inner Circle membership every single month. So if you're interested in getting help with that and have a community of others to do that with, feel free to check out the link in the description or on the screen right now. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you back in the next video. Cheers.